Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout 3, where today we're going to be taking a look at some melee weapons. Today we're going to be taking a look at the knife family. Not all the knives, because again, in this Fallout, there's a lot of knives. So for this, we're just going to be taking a look at the regular kitchen knife that you can find around the Wasteland. It's a pretty common weapon. It's probably going to be one of the first melee weapons that you find just lying around. Sometimes it appears in crates or lockers or really anything. Vendors always have this. There's a lot of raiders that carry this as like a backup weapon, so finding it on them is going to be pretty common. This isn't really your first melee weapon in Fallout, because the baseball bat is probably going to be that, as well as you get the police baton before this too. So you do have some other options there, and arguably better options, at least with the bat. But the knife is going to be one of the more common weapons, which is good. You can always fix it up with other knives. For the stats, the knife does 4 damage per hit, so pretty low damage per hit. This one does 12 damage per second. It at least attacks fairly fast, so that's kind of nice. This has a 1x crit modifier, regular crits, 4 crit damage, so same as its regular damage. This costs 20 action points to use in VATS, so not the most, but not the least either. This one weighs only 1 weight, which is very handy, and this does have quite a bit of item health, being able to hit 500 times before this thing breaks. So that's kind of nice. For the pros of the knife, this is an early game weapon, so you can find it all over the place, and fixing them up is going to be really easy, so you're pretty much never going to have a broken knife situation unless you're just not paying attention to your item's health, which can happen, but it's not going to cost a whole lot, even if you can't find knives to fix this up from merchants, which is fine. I wouldn't recommend using the alien epoxy on this. That would be much better used on other weapons than just a common knife. And this has decent item HP. The knife, mostly because you're going to be finding so many of them, does not break very quick, so that is pretty nice. The major cons of the knife, though, is that it does have low damage and low stats across the board. It's not really that great of a melee weapon. Like I said, you can get the bat right away in Vault 101, and that one is just better than this in pretty much every way. It's got longer reach, it's got higher damage. I think it's got higher item health than this one. But that one just seems to be better than this, although it is more rare to find bats than knives. That's not saying a whole lot, but it is saying something. And the other con is that this one is going to fall off, and it kind of falls off immediately because you do have the bat, because you can run and get certain melee weapons right away if you would really like to, or certain unarmed weapons. Unarmed in the early game for Fallout 3 is actually really strong because you do have a perk associated with it with Iron Fist, and in Fallout 3 you don't really have any melee related perks outside of like Ninja, which is good. It's still really nice to have, but it also benefits unarmed weapons, and it's kind of just for the whole unarmed and melee set, making it so that the knife really doesn't stand out, and the knife is going to go to our D tier for rating. It's not really that great of a weapon. Yeah, it's better than nothing, maybe. It's honestly not even better than nothing, because your bare hands, if you took Iron Fist, are going to be stronger than this, since they can have a base 15 damage, or 16 damage, because I think they have 1, so 5, 10, 15. Your bare hands would actually out damage a knife with just 1 level of Iron Fist to this. So it's not good when a melee weapon is worse than nothing. Let's move over to the other unique versions of it, because we actually have quite a few. Our first one is called the Ant Sting. The Ant Sting is interesting. You get this one as a quest reward if you side with the antagonist during the Superhero Gambit quest. So you have to side with them, and then they will give you this as a reward. For doing this, then it locks you out of the Protectron's Gaze, which we talked about just the other day, which is the unique laser pistol. And the laser pistol is definitely better than this one, mostly because it's a shotgun-style weapon, and shotgun weapons in this game are insane. The knife actually isn't too bad, though. For the stats, this one does 4 damage on hit, plus it does an additional 4 poison damage per hit that deals damage over 10 seconds. So you do actually get a decent amount of damage and a decent amount of damage per second from the poison just being applied to this. For the DPS, this one has 16, although you still have to account for the poison that's being stacked onto the enemy, so you can rack up the DPS fairly quickly with this one. This one has a 1x crit modifier with just 4 crit damage, so crits aren't really going to matter with this one too much. This one costs 20 action points to use in VATS, same as the regular knife, weighs 1, and has a lot more item health at 1250. This one is substantially better than the knife, but when we talked about how bad the knife is, this one isn't too much of an upgrade compared to other melee and unarmed weapons, so I would move this one up a tier higher into C tier. It is pretty good, but I still feel like you can get better melee weapons by the time you're getting over to Superhuman Gambit, unless you're just going to be rushing that quest, and in which case you might just want to rush for the Protectron's Gaze anyway, because that one is legitimately really good. The Ant Sting is okay, but it's still probably going to get outcompeted by other melee weapons fairly early on. Then we have 2 knives that you can get from the Point Lookout DLC. The very first one is called the Ritual Knife. In order to get this one, you have to complete the quest, or at least do most of the quest for the Necronomicon. I don't remember what it's actually called in that one, but you have to do that, and you have to go down to the Hillbillies Sanctuary site and pick this up. I do think you need to start the quest in order to do this, because I think that's the only way you get the key in order to go there. And this knife is rather interesting because this one does 6 damage per hit, so it is higher damage than the regular knife is. Has 18 damage per second, so it still attacks pretty fast. This one has a 3 times crit modifier, which makes it so hitting crits with this is actually pretty legit. This one does 18 damage on crit, so quite a bit more than the other knives that we've talked about so far. And it makes it so for a crit build, this one is actually pretty decent. This one only costs 12 action points to use in VAT, so it's actually really action point efficient. This one weighs 1, and this one has even higher item health than the Ant Sting at 1333. This one's actually pretty decent as a melee weapon, especially if you want to rush this quest early on. That might be kind of difficult because you still need to go to Point Lookout, so it's going to cost you money to get there. This is still associated with like the hillbillies that are out in the woods, and they actually do pretty high damage and have fairly scary weapons if they end up having double barrels or lever actions. So it might not be worth it. And another kind of problem with this knife is that if you are going to go to Point Lookout, you can potentially just find axes over there that are kind of better than this, at least for general purpose weapons. This one's still not bad though, because knives are super common, so if you want to rush this early on, it will actually prove to be a decent knife throughout the game, and I'd put this one up into B tier. I think it's actually okay. Then we have another Point Lookout knife. This one's more of a gimmick one. This is called the Toy Knife. This one can be found at the very north end of the map near the prison camp. It's not actually in the prison camp though, it's out in the woods, and it's just kind of a hidden Easter egg where it's found on a box next to a hockey mask. Whether this is a reference to Jason or Michael Myers, I'm not entirely certain, or it could be both. Since we don't have like a machete in Fallout 3, maybe this was supposed to be a stand-in for that, or it could just be a reference to having a mask and having a knife like Michael Myers, so it could be read as either one of those. This one's got different stats too, so this one only does 1 damage per hit. It has the lowest damage, I think, out of any weapon, besides your bare hands, which also have 1 damage per hit. Again, your bare hands, though, can be affected by Iron Fist, so they're automatically better than this. This deals 3 damage per second, same attack speed as the other ones, just much lower damage. This has a 1 times crit modifier, although weirdly enough, this one has 10 crit damage, so it actually does 10 times the amount of crit damage that it does regular damage. Which would be impressive if this wasn't single digits, but it is. This one only costs 10 action points to use. I think it's one of the most efficient action point weapons in the game, which is weird. This only weighs 1, and this has a very low 200 swings on it before it breaks. This one is just more of a gimmick weapon. It's kind of a cool little reference, and it's just to add to your unique weapon collection. You're probably not going to be using this as a weapon because even the standard knife is better than this, and the standard knife is pretty bad, so this one's also going to go into D tier. This one would probably be the very bottom of D tier. Out of all the weapons in the game, it's really not good, and it doesn't really serve any purpose other than it's just kind of a cool little reference. And then we also have one other knife that we need to talk about that's technically in the game, but it's only in for a certain time period. And funny enough, I wasn't aware if you spawn this in with the console commands, it would lock you into using it. So this is the Slasher's Knife. This is the pint-sized slasher knife that you get at the end of the simulation. This one has substantially better stats than a regular knife. For its stats, it does 50 damage per hit, which is actually really good. This has 115 damage per second. Weirdly enough, it actually swings a little bit slower than regular knives. This one cannot hit crits. It has a big old 0 for crit chance, 0 for crit damage, so even if it does hit crits, it wouldn't matter. You're not going to be doing any extra damage. This has 0 action points associated with it, but you can't use it in VATS normally. If you're in the base game, I guess you could, which is... I mean, you're already going to cheat this one in, so it'd be cheating even further with that. This one weighs 1 weight, but again, in the simulation, that doesn't matter. It would only matter outside of this. And this one says it has 400 slashes in it before it breaks, but when I was using it, I never noticed the item health actually going down, so it's probably just infinite item health and only supposed to be 400 item health inside the simulation, but there's never going to be a time where you have to have more item health than that for your weapon, since it's at the very end of the simulation, and it's just used to kill people. So this one, I guess I'd put up into A tier, because statistically it is the best of the knives, but you can also only use it for one mission, and if you do spawn it in, you lock yourself into using only it. It's kind of the same thing with the rolling pin, although I don't know how these would interact if you spawn both of them and which one would be equipped over the other one. Or maybe it might freak out and try to equip both of them. Might crash too, I don't know, I didn't try that. Overall, the knives are interesting, and the ritual knife I would say is actually worth getting. The rest of them probably not as much. Regular knives are pretty much just going to be repair fodder for the ritual knife. The toy knife is a gimmick, and Sting is good, but the Protectron's gaze is better, so you'd probably just go with that one. And the slasher knife you can only keep for the mission that it's part of. So tell me your thoughts on the knives down in the comments below. How do you feel about these, and what other weapons would you like to see in this series? Thank you guys so very much for requesting this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye, everybody.